No, you're not canceled. But I mean, then again, I mean, honestly, you're a straight white male, so you were in trouble anyway. So there's no point. Which is the first thing I was pointing out to people is like, you can't have it both ways. You can't say, well, straight white men are automatically racist, and then get mad at them when they say something you don't like. It's like, well, even if they said the right thing, you're saying because they're straight white male, they're automatically racist. So what's the incentive for them to meet you and understand where you're coming from?
Yeah.
If you've already said, I saw some of these people who were, there were some of these folks who were on my list that were trans. They were really racist. This one trans person was one of the people that actually said, "I'm glad Kobe Bryant's daughter died too." I mean, this is a horrible human being. This is somebody who told me in private that they had nothing against levying a false claim against someone if they thought that person was problematic. This is a terrible human being. And so this person was posting that all straight white gay men were trash. And I'm saying, what kind of situation do you have here? Like, there's no sense of community. It's all, well, I'm this. And so anyone who's not this, even if they're partly involved in my situation, even if we're generally LGBT, if they're not the right part of mine, then they're garbage. And I'm just like, well, what's the point? So why should I care about your sensibilities if somebody who's no more me than me, you're saying, well, I'm saying this group of people who are LGBT are garbage, but I'm supposed to care about your that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it
they
doesn't.
Make things worse with their mentality. And it's one thing to disagree and to talk about ideas, but having the idea that you have a different view of, because it's really not something that we discuss scientifically very much. What makes a woman, what makes a man. We don't have those conversations.
No.
So why are you deciding somebody is a bigot if they question something you're saying about an issue that there's no settled science that we discuss. We just, we kind of take it for granted. We see someone, there's two women.
And what you said right there a moment ago is the whole thing in a nutshell. You have a discussion, have a conversation. You cannot have a discussion or a conversation with somebody. I mean, the reason for a discussion and a conversation, in my opinion, is to share thoughts, share ideas, perhaps learn something, maybe change your mind, maybe change their mind, or if nothing else, though, when the conversation is finished, you're now smarter than when the conversation began. Okay, that's the reason for a conversation or a discussion. If you're calling one another names during the conversation or discussion, it's not a conversation or a discussion, because I'm not going to listen to somebody who's calling me a name.
Right.
I will listen to somebody who thinks differently than me and treats me with respect, but I won't listen to somebody who's calling me names. I have no time for that. I'm not going to listen to that person because they've already shown me their cards, and their cards are, they're somebody whose opinion I don't need to consider because they're just name callers and haters.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and again, it's the vast majority of trans people are not like this person I'm talking about, or these people I'm talking about. Just like the vast majority of white men are not like the idiots who were cheering Putin at that white America First conference. But the problem is that that's what you see. It's only natural for people to sort of feel like, oh man, dude, because those people all say, I represent our people. The alt-right people will say, we represent what people should be. And it's the same thing with the people on the other extreme. They act like you're selling us out. And I'm sure you've had it with white males who think society's going woke. They act like if you don't agree with them, you're selling out their kind.
Well, I've had that discussion with so many, and there are a lot of people in my peer group, and they'll say things like, well, we have to take our country back. Okay.
Right.
Nobody took your country. Nobody took our country. And say, well, yeah, it's going that way. The leftists are taking over. Liberals are all taking over. I said, no, they're not. They're not taking over. I said, who's taking over what? Well, they're going to take our guns. Okay, they haven't taken your guns. Okay, well, they're going to. Okay, they've been saying that for the last 40 years. Nobody's going to take your guns. Well, but the country's going to speak Spanish because everybody's coming across the border. Well, guess what? The first thing the people who come across the border do? They speak English. Okay.
Right.
And if you look at a whole lot of border towns in Texas, guess what? They voted for Trump. So no, that's not true.
Yeah.
Nobody's taking your country. Nobody wants to take your guns. Make America great again. I hated that slogan. The main reason I hated it is because America never stopped being great.
Right. Right. And I think that's the problem, is that you have, I'd saying, if the wrong person is president, the entire country is shit. You know,
right.
The people who, when Trump was won, I didn't want Trump to win. I thought he was a lunatic. But they're saying, oh, this country's, it's terrible. We're going to be, the Nazis are coming. I go, no, it's the same country. If Clinton had won, it's 99.9% the same country.
Yep.
What? Donald Trump has won. Donald Trump, all that stuff that you're complaining about, you know, he doesn't control that. The same thing with these people saying, well, Joe Biden is why we have inflation. Come on, man. I mean, he might be doing some stuff that I don't like, that you don't like, but you're saying he's the reason why there's inflation. Come on.
No,
you know,
that's the thing. And the opposition will always point, if things are bad, the opposition said it's because of this guy. Now,
right.
If we had 1% inflation and the stock market continued to rally, you bet your bottom dollar that Biden and all his supporters would say, you know what, this is because of me and my policy.
Absolutely.
So they take credit for it, but they don't accept responsibility. And that's not unique to the Democratic Party. That's all parties, all politicians, all the time.
Right.
You see the memes on Facebook. Okay, Biden's president, gas is $5 a gallon. Well, it was $1.20 a gallon when Trump was president. We need to have Trump back. Oh, stop it.
Right.
That's because if oil is $20 a barrel versus $120 a barrel, that's what's going to make the gas prices more expensive.
Right. I mean, and it's a simple thing to understand. You can look at the graphs, but the people who hate Biden are intent on blaming Biden for closing the Keystone Pipeline because it's a culture. And I think that's getting back to why things have gotten so out of hand. Is people who don't like Biden have made that a culture. It's a culture of, you know, I don't think it's just about Trump. I think it goes beyond Trump. It's whatever they think their right, far right thing or whatever it is. They think that's it's not just, hey, I have an opinion about politics. Gee, our side lost. Both sides have gotten really good at making it seem like if the other side wins, then you're doomed. And what they're going to do is they're going to make everybody do X. You know, they're not going to let if the Republicans win, black people won't be able to vote anymore.
Right.
What? Come on. I mean, they're trying to cheat. Yeah, sure. And that's the thing, is it's a culture, because if you don't, you know, in 1973, the difference between Democrat and Republican, there was a difference. You had diehard Democrats, but I don't think it was nearly as cultural as it is now.
It absolutely was not.
You know, and like you said, you could have some people who are like conservative Democrats, liberal Republicans. You don't have that now. Republican is considered a certain thing. And Liz Cheney, he says, hey, man, this guy, he didn't win the election. She's basically not allowed to be a Republican anymore.
They took her off a leadership committee. They absolutely did. And on the other end, you got Joe Manchin, who I have so much respect for Joe Manchin, because he does what he wants and what his constituents want, and he doesn't give two shakes about the Democratic Party. There's only there's a handful of politicians who are like that. Joe Manchin is one of them. The lady, her name escapes me. She's the senator from Arizona.
Yeah, that's Sinema.
Yes. She's that way.
Yeah.
Mitt Romney is that way. Cheney is that way.
Right.
I mean, there's a handful of them that are like that. Tulsi Gabbard was that way, Democrat. Right. And there are other Republicans as well. This Brian Kemp, the governor of Georgia, is that way. And I hope that those are the politicians that become more prevalent. and not the party politicians. I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and I said, look, he was talking bad about the Democrats. I said, well, I'm not a big Democrat fan. I'm certainly not a Biden fan. And he said, yeah, the gas prices are high because of Biden. I said, no. Well, he closed the Keystone Pipeline. I said, okay, here's a fact. Had that pipeline stayed open, gas prices probably would, in fact, they would be lower, but they wouldn't be $2 a gallon. Okay. Instead of up the street from me, they're $4.49 a gallon. Maybe they'd be $4.19 a gallon. But the reason the gas prices went through the roof here is because we stopped importing Russian oil.
Right.
And because Russian oil is a certain grade that certain refineries can turn into gasoline. You can't turn Keystone Pipeline oil into gasoline the same way as the Russian oil.
Right.
So would it help? Sure. Would it solve the problem?
Yeah.
No, because that's not what caused the problem.
Right.
But if you take guys like Joe Manchin, I said, look, if Joe Manchin ran for, I've never voted for a Democratic president in my life. I voted for Republicans, Libertarians, and Independents. That's all I've ever voted for. I said, but I'm here to tell you, if Joe Manchin ran for president, I'd vote for him. And my friend said, well, he's not really a Democrat. He's really a Republican. I said, no, he's not. He's a Democrat. He's really a Democrat, and I really would vote for him.
Right.
And so if more people thought that way, I think that we would be closer to solving more of the problems that we have. That being said, it's not that we would now get our country back because somebody is taking it, because nobody's taking our country.
No, these are these nifty slogans. They use these nifty slogans that they work. Because most people don't understand the science of they don't understand the science of language.
True.
It's sort of like if you say something a certain way enough times, people internalize it and don't think about what you're actually saying.
Mm.
And when you engage in that process, you trick people into not thinking about what they're saying. Like when people say cases, that's another example. Cases. Oh, cases in St. Louis are on the rise. We need to reinstate a mask mandate. Well, what is a case? People don't think about what a case is. A case is a positive test. It doesn't even necessarily mean more people are getting COVID than they had it 2 weeks ago. It means that someone took a test and the test came up positive. It doesn't mean that everyone's getting COVID all of a sudden. Mm-hmm. But the word case has this sort of meaning, ethereal meaning that goes beyond the actual structure of the definition. And people get scared. Oh, cases, and they hear that word or taking my country back or whatever, and all of a sudden they just shut down. They stop thinking critically, and they're like, we need to take her. And I see people say this stuff online all the time, like making America great again. I go, when was America great last? No one can give a real answer.
Mm-hmm.
No one has an answer because there's always something good and bad happening every year.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you when America was last great. At 10:11 on May the 28th, 2022. Right now. Right now.
Right.
And the reason I say that is because you and I are now 1 hour and 43 minutes into this podcast. We're both very opinionated people. We're saying things out there because that's the way we believe. There will be a group of people who will listen to this podcast. Some will agree with some of it. Some will agree with less of it. But nobody's going to tell me I have to shut up. Nobody's going to tell you to shut up. I'll probably lose some listeners over this podcast. I'll pick up some more listeners. If people don't want to listen to me, they won't listen anymore. And like a statement I love to use. Our country sucks. Look at all the people coming in at the southern border. Okay, if it sucked, then why do all these people want to come here? They're not busting down the borders to get into Pakistan, friend. They're not doing it.
Right.
Well, look at the way this country treats its black people. Okay, compared to 50 years ago, we're better off, and we keep getting better, and we'll never
Right.
be perfect. But if we continue to get better at how we treat everybody,
Right.
then we're going to be
Right.
better.